What the fuck is up, Juggalo a day? MrMakanHoes, back again for another Tuesday. So we're talking about haunted houses and the stories on both sides of the fence, being patrons and actors. Patron-wise, I really don't have any great stories. Most of the time that I went through haunted houses when I was young, I was pretty young, like below the age of 10, and honestly, I was just terrified of being in there. So my face usually ended up in my mom's back, just trying to make it through it. I was a softie, I'll admit it. But I have 3 stories for you for working at haunted houses, or a haunted house. I worked for one in particular for, I want to say 5 years, but technically it was like maybe 4 years and a couple of weeks, like maybe 2 weeks, because one of the stories actually made me feel like super shit, and I eventually quit and just called it quits. One story takes place on my 4th year working there, closing night. But I'm going to finish off with that story because it's a little more lighthearted and funny. The other 2 stories were really bad stories. So, we're getting ready to open on our 5th year. Well, my 5th year of working there. And we're probably maybe a week in of, every night, besides Wednesdays, because we were closed on Wednesdays. Anyways, so we're getting ready to open this night, and everybody is working on getting to their spots. One of the things that they did with us the very first week is they had us come in a couple hours early and walk through the houses, and they would walk through the house and show everybody, where our pop doors were, what scares were available to use, and all of that. And so, being as I had kind of showed up while they were rebuilding the house, so I knew where some stuff was, and the walkthroughs kind of showed me a little bit more about each area, in case we were having a slow night and I decided to wander out of my area and go play somewhere else, if you know what I mean. And anyways, we're getting ready to open this night, and I'm hearing people, go through their pop doors and stuff. It's kind of your quickest way to get through the house. If you're working in the far back end, instead of, taking the winding twists and stuff, you'd hit these pop doors, and it would take you 2 minutes compared to, 5 minutes of taking all the hallways and stuff. So I hear somebody working their way through the pop doors, and I can hear them coming to my area. Now, my area for this year was, it was a hallway. So the hallway lined up like this. You would come in this way, and it came out of a dark hallway. And it did a loop up and came straight back around with walls that were drywall, but, with the little slants of wood where the drywall had been, busted out so you could see through the wall in certain areas. And I used to stand right at the end of the curve to right where they were heading. And mind you, I'm a tall dude, and at that time I was pretty big, probably somewhere close to 400 pounds or so. And I had a mohawk, and I was rocking all black with a black trench coat, and I would just stand there, and I would stand there and stare at them. And then as they got closer, I would go around the corner and back into my pop doors where the hallway came down and then over and out and around, and there was this little bulge out that had a pop door on each side. But that really doesn't matter because those pop doors were never, I mean, they were used, but for these stories, they weren't used. So anyways, we're opening, and I hear somebody making their way through the pop doors, and when you first come into my room, there's a dark hallway into a lit room, and there's a pop door that the person on the other side of, so my hallway's here, on this side of the wall, towards the beginning of the house, there was a pop door that they could use too, to scare them as they first came into this lit up room after going through the hallway. Well, I could hear a worker making their way through the pop doors to get to that, to come through towards the back of the house. So I walked down to where the room lit up, and where the pop door was, there was a little wall, so you could smash the door open and it would hit the wall and make a bunch of noise. So I hear that pop door open, and I'm walking down the hallway towards it, and I hear it pop open, and I peek my head around the corner, and I'm just like, what are you doing? And the guy that I scared grabbed the wall that I popped around, because, I mean, it was just a little corner wall, so, I mean, you know, enough for you to grab on with your hand. Grabbed onto it, and I could see his whole arm just shaking as he was holding it. And I was like, okay, you know, I scared him, whatever. And as I'm watching him, he starts going backwards, still holding the wall. And he falls flat on his back as he gets to maximum, you know, arm length. And his arm just pops off, and he starts having a seizure. And, which freaked me out. You know, I yelled that I needed help. Nobody came right away, and so I ran back to our prep area and got the manager, or the owner of the house, and was just like, hey, such and such is having a seizure, I think. I don't know, I kind of scared him, and he was shaking on the ground, and I tried to yell, but nobody could hear me, so I came back and got you. And we go back out there, and he's still having a seizure, and the one of the makeup artists follows. He was also a trained EMT, but he wasn't really like in the business. I think he might have been outside of like the haunted house season. And so we get there, and he's seasoned, and the makeup artist is just like, you know, just stay back, let him get some air, you know, there's not really much we can do. So he stops, we get him to the back, get him some water, and I at the time, I felt like a huge asshole, like, oh, fuck, you know, I really just fucked this dude up by scaring him. But it turned out not as bad. He told them, you know, hey, I'm supposed to be on these anti-seizure medications, and I stopped taking them because I didn't like the way they made me feel, and so, you know, I ended up talking to him a few days later, and he came back, he was on his pills, and, you know, I was like super, super apologetic and all that, because I felt like shit, and he was like, dude, it wasn't your fault, it was my fault, I shouldn't have stopped taking my pills, blah, 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 blah. So, I pretty much scared a dude into having a seizure. And I still kind of feel like shit about it, even though it was his fault. The next story is probably the worst story of, probably the worst thing that I've probably caused my entire life, and even to this day, I still feel like a fucking asshole for it, and you know, a lot of people say, oh, well, you know, you can't help it, that what happened, it wasn't your fault, there was no possible way that it was your fault. You know, heart disease is a son of a bitch, and the guy happened to be lucky that you were there to help instead of him, you know, being alone. Anyways, to set up the story, there is a older guy, I want to say 60s, 70s, and he's coming through the house. It's just him and his granddaughter. Now, they come into my hallway, and he has his granddaughter in front of him. And, I mean, you can tell he's worked up, she's worked up. It's set up to be, you know, for the time that they're in my area, I'm going to enjoy it because I'm going to scare the shit out of you. I'm big, like I said, I'm a big dude. I used to be able to do this breathe in kind of thing where I sounded like a velociraptor almost. It was just this high-pitched screech. And it was just such a loud noise for a big dude, you know, that wasn't like a, you know, like roar. It was a screech, like a kind of thing, but way louder. Actually, everybody in the haunted house would always talk about, man, that fucking screech. Every time I'm sitting in my fucking pop door and I hear that screech and it freaks me the fuck out. And I love doing it, you know. I would religiously just eat cough drops for all of October because it would just kill my throat, and by the end of the month I would end up sick because my throat was just hoarse and fucking just fucked. So anyways, they're coming in, and I'm standing at the end of the hallway, and I see them coming into the lit up room. Well, the other person knew that they were good scares, so they hit him with that pop door coming into the lit up room. And they shuffle past him really quick. And I don't know 100% if they see me standing at the end of the hallway. Mind you, I'm wearing all black. And they're shuffling towards me pretty fast. So I do kind of a quick little sprint at them. Maybe like 10 feet or so. And they notice me. And they stop and they back up and they hit the little wall where the pop door would be able to hit heading down the hallway. And so, you know, I back up to the corner and I sidestep around the wall so they can no longer see me, but I kind of keep peeking my head out at them. Well, they get to the corner where they have to turn, and I had moved my way back around the corner all the way, and they peek their head around. And I jump forward and I slam on the wall that is the center wall between the curve and the wall that is blocking them where the curve happens. So I hit this wall and this wall up here. You know, boom! And I screech. Just fucking full force right in their face. You know, going full throttle. Because that's what I love to do, especially if I could knock people off their feet, which was very common. You would get a lot of people down into the corner, and I would just hand on each corner, just lean straight over at them, you know, just full throttle into them. Well, I pop around, I do that, I hit my screech, and they both tumble into the corner after, well, here's the curve, they tumble into this corner, so they haven't even made it into this second part of the hallway going back this way. So they were coming this way, they poked their head around the corner, I screeched, they fell back into the corner right here. And they fall into the corner, and I'm like, fuck yes, perfect opportunity, hit the corners, ride down on them, you know. I'm telling them I'm gonna fucking eat them and all this other crazy shit. And I'm looking at the guy, and he's just staring at me, and his eyes are just wide open. And out of nowhere, his eyes go from wide open to eyes rolled back. And in my head, at first, I'm like, fuck yes. I fucking scared this guy so bad that he passed out. I was like, this is the best thing ever. I've never scared anybody enough to make them pass out. Fall down, sure, but pass out was, you know, top tier. And as his eyes rolled back, I seen him, he reached in and just, you know, kind of squeezed in on himself. And his daughter, or his granddaughter, is down on the ground in front of him. And she's freaked out at the fact that I'm standing, you know, right there, still in their face. And I see him go like this and kind of hunch in. And I kind of start to panic. So I break character, which, you know, the house that we were at really wanted you to not break character as much as possible, just because it kind of killed the vibe. But I broke character, and I put my hand on the guy's shoulder, and I was like, "Are you alright?" And he doesn't say anything. His eyes are just rolled back, and his jaw is just open, and he's clutching himself. And I'm like, "Oh fuck, this is a serious situation." And so I kind of shake him a little bit, and I'm like, "Sir, are you okay? Are you okay?" And he's not responding. So I yell at the top of my voice, "We have a patron down. I need help. I need help." And my the owner comes busting in. The makeup artist that is also an EMT comes in, and at the end of my hallway leads into another short, dark hallway into a doll room. And there were 2 girls that would work in this doll room. Now, the girls will come into play in a minute. So they come in there, and they're not really sure what's going on. They think he might be having a stroke, or he might be having a heart attack. And they tell me, they're like, "Just, you need to go back away." And I'm like, "Okay." So I back up, and the EMT makeup artist is calling 911, and I go to the back little break room area to get some water and to sit and just take a second, because I was already worked up from scaring them, that now I had to switch over to I really just fuck somebody up. So the ambulance shows up, and the fire department shows up, and they put him on a stretcher, and as they're taking him out, they come through the break room. The break room is just really where this garage is that we left kind of cracked open for air to come in, which was right next to the exit of the haunted house. And they opened up the garage so they could just wheel him out that way. And I'm sitting there, and the EMTs that are taking him to the ambulance are like, "Oh, we're pretty sure he's having a heart attack," just kind of talking to each other. And so I was fucking I really just gave this dude a heart attack. And I felt like shit. The dude pissed his pants. The granddaughter, when I went to the back area, and got a drink and sat there for a minute, and I went to go back to my area, and the granddaughter had actually got taken by one of the girls in the doll room back to the office while they were waiting for the paramedics and stuff. And so pretty much the guy had a heart attack. And that night, I dead honestly, I walked into the makeup area, I took off my costume, I told one of the other female makeup artists, I said, "You need to take my mask off." They would glue these latex pieces that made our eyes seem super sunken in and stuff. And I was like, "I need you to take my mask off." And she's like, "Oh, we're not closed." And I was like, I'm done. I'm leaving. You either take it off me or I'm taking it with me. And so they take it off, and that was my last time working at a haunted house. Still to this day, I feel bad. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, heart disease is a bitch, and it wasn't your fault that it happened that way, and he was lucky that you were there to be able to provide some assistance instead of him being alone and suddenly having it happen." But I still feel like shit. In the third story, let me grab a drink here. And the third story I want to leave with should be a little more uplifting, because it was actually a really funny story. Most people that work haunted houses know that African Americans, black people, tend to get really worked up in haunted houses. Outside, I ain't scared of shit, they try to scare me, I'm gonna punch them, blah, 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 and they get into the house, and they turn into fucking 10-year-old girls. Not all of them, not stereotyping, but a good percentage of African Americans, you can get great scares out of them. Great scares. So my 4th year, closing night, our very last group of people to go through are 6 big, fucking thuggy looking black dudes that they kind of passed around word through the house, hey, these guys have been in line, and they've been talking about hitting people, so kind of be on guard. Well, that went out the window as soon as they walked into the house and got the first scare, because they all fucking dropped to the ground, down on their knees, like, oh shit, it's going down. So they're working their way through the house, and the owner is probably 10, 15 feet behind him. In every room, he was like, we got this plan. As soon as you hit your scare, go out to the front. This haunted house was built inside a abandoned skating rink. So you have your typical, oval shape for a skating rink. Well, the front of the house had a pretty much half an oval where the line was set up, to go back and forth to work their way in. So we weren't going outside, we were just going outside the house that was built inside the building. And so he's the owner is following behind saying, oh, go out front, we're going to get these guys one more time, really good, whole house scare. And, that'll be how we finish up the year for year 4 for me. So they make it to my thing, they tell me to go out. At the end, we have a guy with a chainsaw that scares them out, and when they come out of the back of the house, they're at the back of the building. So they have to walk up alongside of the house that's already built and around to an exit door that's actually at the front of the house. So the people in line get to see the people leaving, running out of the building. And we had like this whole scene set up. There was like a guillotine, and there's rock walls, like skate rinks has the little rock walls, and you come in from, 3 or 4 different openings. So we have people behind the walls, we have people behind this big guillotine, we have people just kind of standing there. I was just standing there, kind of in front of the guillotine, just kind of hunched down a little bit. And these guys come out of the haunted house in the back and are hauling ass as the guy with the chainsaw is chasing them. As they get there, I'm probably one of the few that were in sight, so they tried to go, I'm standing right here, they try to go around me, and the exit door is like up here. They try to go around me, and as they come closer to me, all of the haunted house employees just fucking explode and just swarm them. And we literally get these 6 big dudes into a circle that is probably no bigger than 6 feet. On their hands and knees, fucking almost fetal position, but still, upright. Well, not upright, but, hands and knees, like, freaking out. And we're all just fucking screaming at them and freaking out, and a few of the guys fucking fall down onto their, not the guys that are getting scared, a few of the actors fall onto their backs and slide themselves underneath the people, so they're looking up at them and they're just yelling at them, and eventually they all jump up and run outside, and some of the actors, give chase, and they end up chasing them across the street and everything. But literally that was just one of the best scares. When they came through my hallway, it wasn't too over dramatic or anything. Just the hit my pop doors on them, screech on them. The screech got one of them to kind of back up a little bit, but I definitely wouldn't say I had probably the best scare in the house. But really, that's my thing. We're almost at 25 minutes. It's a long ass video. Anyways, MrMakanHoes. Back for Juggalo a day. And that's all I got for you. Peace.